Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Daniel Bryan is the new #1 contender to the Fiend's Universal Championship. Braun Strowman made sure that everyone gets these hips, and Otis and Mandy Rose continue down the love train. I am Chopper P. Quinnell. Please give us a like and a subscribe, and press the eye above my head to let us know what you thought of SmackDown, where you can choose from Smacknificent, Smacktastic, Smack Bang in the middle, Smackdowner, and a Smack in the face. This is the final SmackDown episode of the decade, December the 27th, 2019, in about 5 minutes. The show opened with Elias in the ring, running down the card for that night, which is honestly not the worst way to use him at all. After the opening video package, Are You Ready for a Good Time?, Daniel Bryan comes out to the ring for the pre-advertised triple threat between Bryan, Miz, and Corbin for the #1 contendership to Bray Wyatt's Universal Championship. Oh wow, I mean, Corbin's opening the show. Well, at least he won't main event. I wonder what the main event could be. Just kidding. Out comes Corbin on his sedan chair, and he runs down Bryan and Miz, calls them bad fathers, and says he shouldn't even have to compete in this match because he beat Roman Reigns twice. This brought out the big dog, who promptly beats up Corbin around the ring before Corbin scampers away. After an ad break, Corbin is backstage yelling at random backstage personnel man number 3, saying the match should be postponed. So, I guess we're doing Miz versus Bryan then? In the meantime, while they're figuring that out, it's time for a 6-man tag match between The New Day and Braun Strowman versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Cesaro, and... Can it be? Is it possible? Yes, it is! Sami Zayn is wrestling again! Thank you, Lord, for this incredible holiday gift! Sami Zayn is wrestling again! I mean, he didn't do that much wrestling, but it's a lot better than nothing. This was a really fun match, with the match organically building to a massive Braun Strowman hot tag after Kingston was repeatedly beaten down and prevented from making the tag. Nakamura's looking like he's gonna hit Strowman with the New Day's pancake tray, but Kingston takes it back, clonks Shinsuke over the head with it, allowing Strowman to hit the power slam on Nakamura for the win. This is honestly a perfectly fine way to pin your champion, allowing a Strowman-Nakamura Intercontinental Championship match to happen at Royal Rumble, most likely, while also protecting the champ somewhat with the pancake tray to the head before the power slam. After the match, New Day get on the mic and say that Strowman has some good hips, and tonight, Detroit should get this dance. Strowman then dances. This was fun, honestly. There was major house show vibes here, and this was a holiday special. Yeah, it was fun. It's announced backstage that it will be just Daniel Bryan versus The Miz for the #1 spot instead, as Corbin refuses to compete tonight with Roman Reigns running around. Cool. You know, I'm okay with that. Backstage, Mandy Rose asks Sonya Deville to accompany her to the ring for her match, but Sonya, quite rightly, says that Mandy wasn't there for her match, so why should she be there for hers? Mandy reminds her it was because of Otis's sweat getting on her dress before Otis shows up with a homemade fruitcake for Mandy. Mandy says it's sweet and walks off. Cut the tension with a knife. Up next was Mandy Rose without Sonya Deville versus Carmella in a fairly quick match that Carmella won with a super kick after a nice sequence of roll-ups. Sheamus is still in a dark corridor before Daniel Bryan is already in the ring for his match against The Miz. Okay, out comes Miz, and the two get underway. The two are feeling each other out just in the early stages of the match. There's a double crossbody spot, and King Corbin's security run down and cause a double DQ. Cut backstage to gorilla position, and Corbin says that's justice, or something. He's informed that Reigns has been asked to leave the arena, so then says he'll compete tonight after all. That is an incredibly roundabout way to get to a match that you'd already advertised before. Up next was a moment of bliss with Lacey Evans, where Lacey did some solid promo work talking about her daughter. She then left and went to the ring in preparation for her tag match against Sasha Banks and Bayley, partnering with Dana Brooke. But when Brooke came out, she was dragged out by Banks and Bayley, with Banks calling her a terrible tag team partner. The 4 brawl before it goes to an ad break. The match is well underway as we come back, with Lacey getting a hot tag shortly after against Bayley. She runs wild and does a really nice jumping moonsault from the top rope for a near fall before Banks manages to tap Dana out, with the Banks statement. A really solid match here, and it furthered the story between Lacey and Banks, which is the only real negative about this, as the champion Bayley feels like the third wheel in this feud. Mandy Rose is backstage next with her fruitcake when the high school jock himself, Dolph Ziggler, comes in, runs down Otis's cake, takes it and stamps it into the floor. Just as he and Mandy are about to make New Year's plans, Corbin comes in and drags Ziggler away to talk about something. Wahahaha, evil people things. Mustafa Ali has a backstage promo next talking about his 2019, which was actually really good. I mean, the promo, not his 2019, that wasn't that great. Before Otis is backstage and finds the stomped-in cake all over the floor. Poor Otis. Wait, Mandy didn't clean it up? Come on, Mandy, you're better than that. Finally, we get to our main event triple threat. This was honestly a really fun match, with Corbin adding that extra layer to the match on top of the storied history of Bryan and Miz. It was nice to see Bryan and Miz work together, but then work against each other afterwards as well. The psychology worked really well for this match, and it looked as though Corbin was about to win. After being hit with a running knee from Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler comes out, hits a super kick on Bryan, and rolls Corbin on top of him, only for Corbin to be dragged out of the ring by Reigns, who hadn't left the arena at all, that sneaky devil. After an ad break, it's Miz versus Bryan one-on-one as Corbin and Reigns have brawled out of the arena in what was again some really fun action. The pair went back and forth with some inventive spots, with Miz going straight from a kick-out into a figure four, and Bryan locking in a modified label lock for the win to become the #1 contender. A quick Firefly Funhouse popped up to remind us to let him in before Bryan celebrated to end the show. For the final episode of 2019, this was actually a pretty good show. Some of the Corbin story got a little convoluted at times of being a triple threat, then one-on-one, then a triple threat, then one-on-one again, but it was nice to see the Bryan Miz story and the Corbin Reigns story overlap and play into each other. The Otis Mandy story is classic simple storytelling at its best, and the women's division got a bit more focus this week, with Lacey coming across as a sympathetic babyface. This SmackDown gets a low smacktastic. And now, over to me for the news. Great review. Me? You're really getting the hang of this. In January 2018, it was announced that WWE chairman Vince McMahon had decided to try and resurrect the XFL, his ill-fated American Football League, which lost McMahon and NBC executive Dick Ebersol $35 million each, and Vince even described the whole thing as a colossal failure. However, if we've learned anything from Vince since then, it's that colossal failures won't stop him, and in 2020, the XFL will kick off again, after Vince pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into its revival. Say yeah. It's the tag team. Unfortunately for Vince and several other senior officers within WWE, one stockholder, an Oklahoma Firefights pension fund, has decided to sue his company because it believes there is a credible basis to believe that Vince McMahon and other WWE senior officers breached their duties to investors by diverting valuable resources from WWE to the XFL. There is also a suggestion within the lawsuit that WWE's board members have failed to make sure McMahon wasn't engaging in any conflict of interest while dealing with both companies. The lawsuit was only filed on December 26th. I mean, you want to get Christmas out of the way before you sue a multi-billion-dollar empire, so there is limited news on what will happen next. But it's the sort of thing Vince would have wanted to avoid in his second attempt to make the XFL work. Considering the league is due to kick off in February 2020, this is exactly the kind of thing Vince McMahon will be dreading, as he will want the second run of the XFL to be a raging success and a smooth process, and getting off to a negative is not the best thing in the world. The XFL will be shown by a number of broadcasters, including Fox and ESPN. There are 8 teams in this first season, which are split into the Eastern and Western Conference. For those curious, the Western Conference will consist of the Dallas Renegades, the Houston Roughnecks, the Los Angeles Wildcats, and the Seattle Dragons. The Eastern Conference will feature the DC Defenders, the New York Guardians, the Tampa Bay Vipers, and because everyone ran out of ideas, they put the St. Louis team into a random word generator and came up with the St. Louis Battlehawks. Whatever one of those is. The thought is that Vince McMahon will have to take a step back from WWE to focus on the XFL, but don't be fooled, he will still have the final say on everything, even if he's not in the building. But it's not all bad news for WWE in the courtroom, because one half of the 6-time tag team champions Jimmy Uso was cleared of all charges after being arrested on suspicion of DUI in July earlier this year. Luckily for the Usos, it seems that this not guilty ruling has fast-tracked the Usos' return to the main roster for the first time since Jimmy's arrest. WWE's tag team division has been crying out for the brothers to return, as in the past few weeks, it has been almost a given that on Raw, you'd see the Viking Raiders versus the OC, and on SmackDown, you're probably going to get to see the New Day versus the Revival. According to the very reliable Twitter account WrestleVotes, the Usos are to make their return to the ring very soon, and that the current plan is to have them return on Raw. The brothers weren't a part of the latest WWE draft in October, so are eligible to go to whichever roster fits WWE's creative plans. Source says the creative team was recently instructed to start coming up with ideas for a return of the Usos. They are slated to remain on Raw, however, as you guys know, that means nothing. Logic would have suggested that the team would return on SmackDown in order to team with Roman Reigns in his continuing feud with Baron Corbin and his mid-card Vortex. But who even needs logic these days? And Roman can just beat everyone at the same time anyway. Hopefully, Jimmy can stay out of trouble in 2020 and going forward, as WWE really doesn't need further legal issues with its stars, particularly someone like Jimmy Uso, who has been arrested on multiple occasions for drink-related offenses. If the duo can stay out of trouble, then we should see them considerably increase their tally of tag titles in the months and years to come. There's been a shock title change at a WWE house show at Madison Square Garden. Press the video to the right to find out more, and the video below that to learn about every 5-star and above rated match of 2019. A special thank you to our pledge channels on Patreon, some of whom you see scrolling below me right now. I've been Joe and Pete Quinnell. That was wrestling.